Although most of us think of Hollywood when it comes to filmmaking, these days it's really an industry that spans the globe. If your kids watch animated shows on Disney Plus, chances are they're enjoying the work of talented Taiwanese artists. So why aren't domestic productions from Taiwan making more of a splash? Well, Christopher Chen, the executive producer and senior VFX supervisor from Reno Studios in Taiwan, offers his insights.
Taiwanese films have absolutely no budget, right? But at the same time, we cannot have if there's no budget, we don't work. And yet, if you see around, we have approximately 120 people here working full-time on those shows. So it's not that either you do that or that you do foreign films or either you do local films. I think the best approach is to do both. You have to think strategically about what's available here. It's like you can think a little bit outside the box. It's like maybe there's a different way to do it, and AI is going to be a main savior to that part because it opens the doors to a lot of possibilities. And Taiwan is actually a very good hub for visual effects. The biggest opportunity that Taiwan has is not to get big Hollywood shows, but is to get the independent films with the budgets between 10 to 15 million, like films that needed to have a budget of 30 to 40 million. But because of the economic crisis that's happening in LA, those budgets are going to be shrunk, but they're going to be manageable enough. And these are the kind of films, like those art house films, that can double down. And those films will be coming mainly to Taiwan and Southeast Asia. Right now, people are actually looking for alternatives, so Taiwan is a good alternative for that.
You can find a full version of our video feature on VFX in Taiwan on our YouTube channel and the TaiwanPlus website. Now, to discuss the ups and downs of the visual effects industry and Taiwan's role in it, we welcome Brian Houlihan, the founder of 5am FX from Kaohsiung, and Chern, award-winning filmmaker, joining us from Taipei. So, Brian, you cut your teeth in New York, which is a hub for the visual effects industry. Why did it flourish there, and how does Taiwan compare to that?
There's the topic that everybody hates, but the big winner for New York was tax subsidy. The majority of television, when I say television, like episodic work, used to be California, Los Angeles. New York, a good 10 years ago, 10 plus, they came out with this amazing subsidy as far as US is concerned. If I remember, I think LA was 25% spend, and New York came out with, we're going to do 30. And then upstate New York was 35%. So all of a sudden, within just a few year span, all these episodic television shows, Netflix, everything just started coming to New York. So the opportunities flourished. There was a lot of visual effects studios that opened up because of that. But I would say that happened because of the subsidy, the post subsidy. And the visual effects post community, when I say post, the editors, the sound, everyone that came together and they formed their own post alliance. And so that was a way to really go to the state government and try to push for continuation. So when I only bring that up because New York City as a city within the US has a very strong community of post-production people. And I think for Taiwan to really succeed in this area, they have to look at countries and cities doing that right. When I look at Japan, like they have a great subsidy. South Korea, great subsidy. Taiwan, I'm still not even that familiar with like what can they do. So that is a part that the government has to learn how to publicize. Taiwan may have this fantastic subsidy, post-subsidy, but how do they get the news out there? And so I'm constantly getting referrals and contacted from directors that are like, I would love to shoot in Taiwan. I would love to do post-production in Taiwan. What can they offer? And so this is a growing conversation that more people should be having that will help Taiwan bring work here. And when you bring work, that means more studios can open. When more studios open, that means more artists can be hired. So it's this foundation that I know Taiwan is investing, but in my opinion, it has to be more, a lot more.
Jay, we heard Christopher Chen a second ago talk about how there are very low budgets here for media production. Why is that? I mean, Taiwan used to be an entertainment powerhouse for the region, and now we hear a lot of people complaining about that.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's because it's a smaller market. There's what, 20 million people in Taiwan. So for films, at least if we're talking about feature films, the feature films have usually like 1 to 2 million USD budget. So it's definitely an independent film, even if it's a commercial film in Taiwan. And I think it's also a situation where, as Brian's mentioning, how the government works with the kind of corporations that are producing films, and how do they incentivize collaborations, whether it's co-productions or bigger budgets, to be able to make films that might have more international reach, that could possibly bring in more capital, whether it's like it makes more money and then more people are willing to invest. So it's kind of it's a kind of a chicken and egg kind of answer or question, where it's like, yeah, well, why isn't Taiwan, investing more or doing more about it? And I think in the beginning, the government definitely has to try to incentivize these projects more, whether it's bringing in more foreign productions, giving them better, not just subsidies, but like tax subsidies. But I think that's an issue that is, I guess, more difficult because Taiwan is not that experienced in giving tax subsidies. They're more experienced in just giving a subsidy for a specific film. So maybe you have a project and then you go project by project based on, you submit your script, you submit your storyboards, and then you see what the talents already kind of attached, actors or directors. And then based on that, Taiwan will give an X amount of subsidies, maybe up to 50% of your budget, like maximum. But at the same time, where Brian was mentioning, the US model is just a tax subsidy. It doesn't matter what you're shooting, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a TV show, as long as you're shooting in Taiwan, like if Taiwan was using that same model, as long as you're shooting here, then as long as it doesn't matter how much you spend, even if you only spend like 100K US on a commercial, but you're shooting in Taiwan, then you can get a subsidy using Taiwan work or Taiwan workers, or you're doing post-production here. So I think that type of incentivization, if Taiwan can, think about it, or the, Ministry of Culture or TAICA, they can somehow implement that into a model where it allows all productions to be able to kind of see the incentive of why they should bring their whole production, fly all these people, and then work in Taiwan. I think that would be a big advantage, because right now, at least for example, just for commercials in Taiwan have nothing to do with film. Like they're not even considered as part of like filmmaking. Commercials are commercials, so it's not even under the umbrella of like the Ministry of Culture. So I think that's the issue. So like the subsidies would never go to like a commercial, because they look at it as that, oh, that's a completely like corporate venture. But as we know, like filmmaking, a lot of times the filmmakers, they still have to make a living. So they're usually shooting commercials. So they start with commercials, they work on visual effects in commercials, and then you do some TV shows, and then hopefully you can make a film.
Well, money is not the problem only in Taiwan. We know recently one of the titans of the VFX industry, Technicolor, has gone under, taking some smaller studios under that umbrella with it. Like I'm thinking of the Mill and MPC. Brian, what does that tell you about the state of the VFX industry? What does that all mean?
So I'm just going to start off by saying I had my career start at the Mill in New York. So the Mill and MPC are very close to my heart, just because I worked at both of them. Before the Mill and MPC merged, I was a constant, what they call permalancer back in the day. And permalance basically means you're a long-term freelancer. So I used to bounce back and forth between both studios. So with that said, it was a big blow to the community when Technicolor collapsed, because all of a sudden you have this funnel of just hundreds and hundreds of artists just out of work, and where do they go? So there are blessings in disguise, but I think as far as seeing how that crash has happened, it's not the first, and there's going to be more. So it's scary to see where the market potentially can be going, but as I said, I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I just say that because what happened with the Mill and MPC, when that collapsed, some of the original super talented people formed ARC Creative. So there are opportunities within teams, within artists, within people you trust to start your own business and expand fast. What happens when a major studio like the Mill collapses? The work has to get done still. So where does it go? It just doesn't stop. It has to get done. So, and that's why I say there's opportunity. If you have the proper network, the connections, know-how, there's some jobs to go after.
Speaking of permalancing, as you mentioned, freelancing, permalancing, that seems to be a bit of a standard in the industry. Now, for a lot of like young aspiring artists, they would probably prefer somewhat more stable employment. But are there any benefits for a young aspiring VFX artist who just starting in the industry to do more freelance work, to do more permalancing work, rather than aim for full-time employment? Brian, what do you think?
I have the tendency to not push, but sort of advise people on explore as many companies as you can, because you need to find what works for you, what flows with you. There are companies you would go to and you're just like, I cannot work with the supervisor. This person's making me stay all hours of the night, so I tend to tell people if you can freelance first just to get your feet wet, that's a great way to see what your city, what your hometown, wherever you're at, what it has to offer. And you will find very fast which studios to avoid, which studios are willing to pay you what you deserve. Freelance in my heart, like I will always believe, like as an artist, it's the fastest way to grow, because you're doing so many different kinds of jobs that you have to learn on the spot. And in my case, I started in commercial, the Mill New York for commercial, only commercial. So when I started freelancing after quitting the Mill, I was doing episodic and film work, and I've never done that. So between jumping from studio to studio, you start learning, oh, well, this studio is like really good at particle systems. I don't know particles. Let me learn that. Oh, this place is really good at live action green screen. Like, that's their thing. And so you just bounce around between studios, and you can really become a jack of all trades, someone who can really do a bit of everything. So as far as freelance is concerned, if you're in a place that gives you the opportunity to explore several studios, I always hands down, I'm like, try. But going to a big studio and becoming staff, that's not a bad thing either, because what big studios offer is mentorship. You'll have people who are willing to teach you, and when they see that you're loyal to the company and are willing to learn, they will invest in you. And so I only mention that because I was at the mill for a few years. It was very heavy flame. That was before nuke was king. Very heavy flame, and I had flame artists teaching me how to use it, but also the small things that no one talks about. Client relations. They would have client suites, and it would bring you in. It would just be the flame operator, the producers from several different agencies, and then some of the assistant artists. And I was one of those assistant artists back then. And you really get a sense of how are they relaying, how are they dealing with the clients and feedback? And that's something I feel like most artists, even if you're scared of personal relations and talking, that is something that will light years jump you ahead of everybody, is if you can learn how to talk to people. And that's something that a lot of artists are hesitant to do. They want to be in a dark room and work on their art. And so freelance, I think, will give you that. And as I told you, investing in a large company as well as a staffer, that's not so bad either. It gives you opportunity for mentorship. And I cannot stress enough, mentor. Like, you find people who you like, who really want to pass down their knowledge. And when you do that, your talent will just expand.
We're almost out of time, but Jay, I want to give you the last word here. What's your advice to an aspiring artist, be it in VFX or just filmmaking in general, especially when it comes to this kind of freelancing or being staff situation here in Taiwan?
No, I mean, I totally agree with Brian. I mean, I think there's advantages to both. Like, if you work at a large studio, if it's Taipei, whether it's Reno Studios, whether it's Moonshine, there's a lot of visual effects supervisors that have done hundreds of projects already. So you'll gain a lot of knowledge from people who have been experienced. If I can go to Gaoshen, I can work with Brian, I'll learn so much more of experiences of projects or films, commercials, TV that have been on an international stage. Whereas in Taiwan, if sometimes if you're freelancing and then you don't have that network yet, sometimes you need to go to a studio sometimes to build that network. And then if you don't have a network, even if you're doing some smaller freelance gigs, maybe you're only doing, really small projects. Maybe you can only do compositing, or maybe you can only do lighting or something, or whatever is needed based on those projects. But maybe your skills can be better used in another place. So I think there's a lot of explorations you can do at a big studio. You can see all the different departments and then see what's best fits you. But at the same time, yeah, if you're freelance, you can choose your own schedule. I think a lot of the younger generation don't want to be stuck on a 9-to-5 job, or as Brian knows, most visual effects studios are not 9 to 5. They're probably closer to, I don't know, probably shouldn't say 24 hours. No. So anyways, it's a tough job. It's not easy.
Well, thank you for your insights and sharing your experience with us. Brian Houlihan, the founder of 5 AM FX, joining us from Kaohsiung, and Jay Chern, a filmmaker, speaking to us from Taipei. What's your experience with freelancing, permalancing, and other less than stable forms of employment in creative industries? Leave us your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you're a big shot executive, slip them into the pocket of your favorite politician. Click the video beside me for a discussion of the technology, talent, and future trends in the VFX industry. If you don't want to miss more stories on tech and finance from Taiwan, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell.